Before starting the story, let us know where you're watching from and what time you're watching. Hollow Grove. The town of Black Hollow was a place forgotten by time, nestled deep in the woods where the sunlight barely touched the ground. It was a town of whispers and secrets, where the past clung to the present like a shadow. The locals spoke of the Hollow Girl in hushed tones, a ghostly figure said to wander the woods at night, her hollow eye staring into the souls of those who crossed her path. No one knew who she was or where she came from, but her story was etched into the town's history like a scar. They said she was a girl who had vanished decades ago, taken by the woods and never seen again. Some claimed she had been betrayed by the people she trusted most, her soul left to wander the earth in search of vengeance. Others believed she was a spirit of the forest, a guardian or a curse, depending on who you asked. But to 16-year-old Emily, it was just a story. Emily had moved to Black Hollow with her father after her mother's death, seeking a fresh start in the quiet town. She didn't believe in ghosts or curses, and she certainly didn't believe in the Hollow Girl. But that was before the dream started. It began with a whisper, faint and distant, like the rustling of leaves in the winds. Emily would wake in the middle of the night, her heart pounding, convinced she had heard someone calling her name. But the house was always silent, the woods outside her window still and dark. Then came the dreams. They were vivid and unsettling, filled with images of a girl with hollow eyes and a tattered dress. The girl would stare at Emily, her lips moving as if she were trying to speak, but no sound came out. And then, just as Emily would wake, the girl would reach out, her cold fingers brushing against Emily's skin. Emily told herself it was just her imagination, a product of stress and grief. But the dreams grew more frequent, more intense, until she could no longer ignore them. One night, after a particularly vivid dream, Emily woke to find herself standing at the edge of the woods. She had no memory of leaving the house, no idea how she had gotten there. The trees loomed before her, their branches twisted and gnarled like the fingers of a witch. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, and the only sound was the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to go back to the house, but something stopped her. A voice, faint and distant, called her name. Emily! It was the voice from her dreams, the voice of the Hollow Girl. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she turned back toward the woods. The voice called again, louder this time, and Emily felt an inexplicable pull, as if the woods themselves were drawing her in. She told herself to run, to go back to the house and lock the door behind her. But her feet moved of their own accord, carrying her deeper into the woods. The trees closed in around her, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air grew colder, the darkness thicker, until Emily could barely see her own hands in front of her face. The voice called again, closer now, and Emily's heart raced as she realized she was no longer alone. The Hollow Girl stood before her, her hollow eye staring into Emily's soul. Her tattered dress hung loosely from her thin frame, and her pale skin seemed to glow in the moonlight. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Emily tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. The Hollow Girl reached out, her cold fingers brushing against Emily's skin, and Emily felt a wave of icy fear wash over her. And then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, the Hollow Girl was gone. Emily stumbled back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She turned and ran, her feet slipping on the wet ground as she fought her way back to the house. She burst through the door and locked it behind her, her body trembling with fear. But the Hollow Girl was not done with her. The dreams grew more intense, more vivid, until Emily could no longer tell where the dreams ended and reality began. She would wake to find herself standing at the edge of the woods, her feet caked with mud and her hands clutching leaves and twigs. The Hollow Girl's voice echoed in her mind, calling her name, drawing her deeper into the darkness. Emily tried to tell her father, but he dismissed it as stress and grief. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses, and he certainly didn't believe in the hollow girl. But Emily knew better. She began to research the history of Black Hollow, digging through old newspapers and town records in search of answers. She learned of a girl named Sarah who had vanished decades ago, her disappearance never solved. The locals had whispered of betrayal and murder, of a girl whose soul had been left to wander the earth in search of vengeance. Emily's heart raced as she realized the truth. The hollow girl was real, and she had chosen Emily as her next victim. One night, after another vivid dream, Emily woke to find herself standing in the woods once again. The hollow girl stood before her, her hollow eyes staring into Emily's soul. "Help me," the hollow girl whispered, her voice faint and distant. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she realized what the hollow girl wanted. She wasn't seeking vengeance, she was seeking justice. Emily followed the hollow girl deeper into the woods, her heart pounding in her chest. The trees closed in around her, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air grew colder, the darkness thicker, until Emily could barely see her own hands in front of her face. And then, suddenly, they were there. A clearing in the woods, bathed in moonlight. The hollow girl pointed to a spot on the ground, her hollow eyes filled with sorrow. Emily's heart raced as she realized what she had to do. She grabbed a nearby stick and began to dig, her hands trembling with fear. The ground was hard and unyielding, but Emily kept digging, driven by a force she couldn't explain. And then her stick hit something solid. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she brushed away the dirt, revealing a small, rusted box. She opened it with trembling hands, her heart pounding in her chest. Inside was a locket, its surface tarnished with age. Emily opened it, her hands trembling, and found a picture of a young girl with hollow eyes and a sad smile. It was Sarah. Emily's heart ached as she realized the truth. Sarah had been betrayed by the people she trusted most, her life taken by those who should have protected her. Her soul had been left to wander the earth, searching for someone to bring her justice. And now, Emily had found her. Emily clutched the locket to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She promised Sarah that she would bring her justice, that she would make sure her story was told. The hollow girl smiled, her hollow eyes filled with gratitude. And then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she was gone. Emily stumbled back to the house, her body trembling with exhaustion. She told her father everything, and though he was skeptical, he couldn't deny the evidence she had found. Together, they brought Sarah's story to the authorities, and the truth was finally revealed. The people responsible for her death were brought to justice, and Sarah's soul was finally at peace. But Emily knew the hollow girl would always be a part of her, a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the shadows. And sometimes, on quiet nights, she could still hear Sarah's voice, faint and distant, carried on the winds. Thank you